Hi, I'm Kelly Bassetti Primo, and welcome to my podcast, Learning Curves, where I bring the small business community direct to you. In my podcast, Learning Curves, we learn about all the unique services that businesses have to offer, and we also learn about the different challenges that businesses go through. In times, businesses go through several different ups and downs, and we talk about the learning curves that we all go through and how we address those. I hope you enjoy my podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Learning Curves. Happy holidays here at Second Soul Studios. Today, I'm very excited to introduce our guest today, Mr. Martin Hernandez, which is a personal injury attorney concentrating in the Tampa Bay area, and he is here to join me to talk a little bit about what he does, and we're going to learn a little bit about his journey into law. So, Martin, can you start by telling me a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I was born here and raised here in Tampa, Florida. Went to Jesuit High School, went to USF, and then I went to...
Wow, all the way Tampa.
All the way Tampa. And then I went to a law school down in South Florida for the only reason because I wanted to get out of Tampa for 3 years. I was accepted at Stetson, but I was like, get out of Tampa for a little bit and just take a break.
Yeah. Do you go to Miami?
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale, nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Met my wife there, so it really worked out.
Oh, I guess it did. Yay. So then when you went down to the Fort Lauderdale area, you got your law degree and came back to Tampa.
Came back to Tampa and became a prosecutor for almost 4 years. Loved it. Put a lot of bad people away for a very long time. Then I went into private practice doing criminal defense and personal injury, auto accidents. Do a lot of lawyers get started like on the prosecuting side? Because I have a lot of friends that are lawyers. It always seems like they start there also. I was just curious. Yeah, I always equate it to like a residency for doctors. A lawyer that wants to get trial experience will quite often start either at the public defender's office or the state attorney's office and work there for 3 or 4 years. The reason is because if you wanted to get trial experience and you go to a private firm, most private firms will not let you try a case for years. Oh, okay. So it's a good way to get the experience on somebody else's dime and then go into private practice and do your thing. It's a lot of fun. But, excuse me, but my journey to actually get to law school is very interesting. Yeah, let's hear that. I'd like to hear what made you decide to do that. Well, I wanted to be a CPA at first. Okay. My father's a CPA, one of the best CPAs probably around because he was the auditor for the Florida Lottery, the Tampa Aviation Authority, and I was like, oh, I like business. This is what I'm going to do. Then I worked at a bank during USF, and I worked in the comptroller's office and a lot of accounting. Did that for a year, and then I realized accounting sucks. It's just bad. So I switched over to finance. What do you not like about it? Well, unfortunately, the bank put me in a back room with no windows, and I'm a social person. And next thing you know, by yourself, crunching numbers. I was looking forward to the janitor coming so I could actually say hello to someone. And I realized, no, this is awful. So I liked being a teller more because I got to interact with people. So I went back to being a teller and switched my major to finance. And finance was fun, and I thought it was creative accounting at the time. And then I realized, I don't know if this is really my calling. And at the same time, I got into a car accident. And then while working as a teller, I got robbed. So I had a lot of interaction with the FBI. You got robbed? Yeah, it was pretty bad. Tell me about that. Well, it was actually Friday, October the 13th. Oh, no. Yeah, and I don't want to get too religious in this, but that day God was watching me. And I was supposed to start work at 9 a.m. And for whatever reason, I woke up early, and I was like, I might as well go in early, maybe get an extra hour of pay. Showed up at 8:05. And they said, yeah, go ahead and start working. I was like, okay, cool. So I started working. The guard was walking to the teller station outside. It was a disconnected drive-through and a freestanding drive-through, if you may. And the guard was walking with money. And sure enough, I watched him jump out of the car and put a gun to the guard's face and shot him in the face. So he shot the guard? He shot the guard. The reason why I say God was watching that day is because at that very moment, I should have been walking in with him, but instead I walked in at 8:05, 55 minutes early. So the
Did
guards,
he die, the guard?
No, Value had just passed. That was back in, I think it was 1996 or 7. And Value had just passed away earlier this year. He was a good man, but he passed away at 25 years later. But,
okay.
Yeah, so he didn't die from the injuries, but he was paralyzed to the face. But I was the first one to respond to him, and he and I remained friends for a few years until he retired. He was a good man, but that was one of the things that I learned. I like this depositions, and I didn't like being deposed, but I thought it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to law school with that. And it was funny because a month later after this, it must have been 97, a month later, I told a girl I had been dating for about a year and a half, hey, I'm thinking about going to law school. And she looked over at me and she's like, well, what do you mean? And I'll never forget it because it was a very bizarre answer. I said, well, look, I'm scheduled to graduate in May, and you're graduating in December. So what are we going to do? She said, well, I'm going to get a job as a nurse, and I'm going to work there for about a year, and then I'm going to get fired. And I looked at her, I was like, that's a weird answer. And
you're going to get fired?
Yeah, I was like, you're going to get fired from your first job? Well, and I just looked at her, I was like, no, I'm thinking about going to law school, and I'm being dead serious. And she looked at me and said, well, don't bother. You'll never make it.
Oh, bye-bye.
So I remember because we were in my bedroom, we were just talking, and I dumped her on the spot.
Good.
The problem was not so much that I dumped her on the spot, but that it was Thanksgiving dinner. Between dinner and dessert, and her family was at my family's house. And I just looked at her and I said, we're done. I'm dead serious.
Oh, you were at dinner with everybody when you said it?
My family, about 35 people in my family, and her family, about 7 people were at, because we hadn't been dating for a year and a half, and it was pretty serious. Well, no, dumped her on the spot. And of course,
she kind of deserved it. You had to support your man.
Yeah. So that story is still to this day pretty famous in my family.
The day.
And it was actually one of the first stories they told my wife. And my wife is a wonderful woman. She's been very supportive over the years. And she just looked right at me. First time they met her, like, let me tell you what not to do with Martin. And she just looked at me that day. She was like, I will never doubt you. Trust me. And I started laughing, and she never has. So, yeah, it's been... That's actually what started my journey to going to law school.
Wow, that's funny. The family.
Yeah, and it worked out.
So what did everybody say? Like, would they cheer for you and say good job, or everyone was like shocked? Or
when I dumped her on the spot,
yes.
They were like, you couldn't have waited till tomorrow or till after dessert? I mean, let's be honest here. But no, I told them the story afterwards, and my father, who's a very wise man, just looked at me and was like, timing. You should have just waited till the morning. Nothing would have changed tonight. Well, I made the call. That was it.
Right.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
That's right. Time to go.
Time to go. So, but from there, I went to law school, and I loved it. Well, you don't actually ever love law school. You're just getting through it.
Right.
But I enjoyed it, and you learn. It changes the way you think. Put it that way. Mm-hmm. You just become much more analytical in approaching things. So
getting into personal injury, was it because you were in a car accident before, or what made you think of personal injury as something to specialize in?
No, actually, because of my degrees in finance, I have a minor in accounting and minor in English. I actually decided, I was like, no, I'm going to do corporate law. But I realized that one of my strengths was actually helping people and just talking to people, the average Joe, the guy the blue collar guys, and calm them down, not be so intimidated to talk to a lawyer. And that's actually what I realized I really like doing. I really like helping people, and that's why I became a lawyer, as I realized I like helping people. And it's funny because when I graduated from law school, I said, I'm definitely not going to do 3 things in law. I'm not going to do criminal law. Well, it was was a prosecutor for 3.5 years. And then I did criminal defense for many years. I still dabble in it. I'm not going to do auto accidents. Well, that's all I do. I'm not going to do family law. Well,
yeah, family law. That sounds really exciting. Drama.
No, I'm never doing family law. Family law is good people at their worst, and criminal law is bad people at their best.
Right.
So that's just a phrase, but they're innocent till proven guilty. But
exactly.
The reality is that not all of them are good players, but
right.
But they are on their best behavior with me. And family law, it's just drama, dividing ashtrays.
Yeah, and that when neither person's usually on their best behavior when they're going through a divorce.
No, they fight over silly things. Like, I helped a friend out with a family law case, and the wife was like, "No, he can't have that ashtray. It's the principal." I looked at her. I was like, "He smokes cigars. You don't. Why do you want the ashtray?" And she's like, "It's the principal." Listen, you're paying $500 an hour. You can fight principals all day long, but we got better things to do. Let's move.
Right. No, I got divorced, and I was stupid when I got divorced, because if I look back on it now, and I'm just like crazy money over stupid fighting and a lot of stress when it really didn't need to be that.
No.
But,
and
probably $60,000, $70,000 later, and only to get to the same place.
Right. And I actually tell people, if you're going to get a divorce, collaborative is a good way to do it. Basically, the parties sit down and say, "What do you need? What do you want?" And then they just divide it up.
Yeah, well, that wasn't necessarily going to work. But.
No, it doesn't always work, but you can usually get a lot of things done better that way. And a lot of times there's what I call attorney-motivated obstruction. So the attorney's going to bill like crazy. So you have to almost rein in the attorneys. Both sides do.
Right.
And
they probably like it when the husband and wife are fighting.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah.
The more you fight, the more I bill until you run out of money.
That's right.
And then you realize you're still in the same spot. So it's better to just work it out amicably. Just hey, look, okay, let's work out what we can, and then we'll fight over what we need to. But there's no easy solution. But I'll look at you and I'll tell you this. You know why divorce is expensive?
Why?
Because it's worth it. Okay, so you got your freedom out of it. Look at it that way.
Yeah, it's true.
So you moved on.
I did. I mean, it was interesting, but I'm in a good place now. That was a while ago. So I'm married. I'm happy.
I was going to say,
I just got married in Italy, and things are going very, very well.
Yeah, and you're sitting here with a 3-table ring. So, do you know what a 3-table ring is?
I've never heard of a 3-table ring.
A 3-table ring is a ring I can see from 3 tables away. So your husband was a smart man to get you a big ring that I can see from 3 tables away.
Yes, he was a smart man.
Yes, he got you, but it was also smart to get a 3-table ring.
Yeah, I love it. Very blingy.
That's right. It is. Yeah, with the light behind you, I'm seeing some bling going on.
Yep. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that I was taken, so that was nice.
Yes, I agree.
Plus, he has good style, too.
There you go. He got you. So, yeah.
Thank you. So let's go. So no divorce.
No divorce. I just handle auto accidents now. That's primarily what I've found that I'm good at. Sit down with people that don't know what they're doing. No, they're overwhelmed. They're hurt. They lost their car. Their child's hurt. How do I get to work? How am I going to pay all these medical bills? That's where I come in.
At CEA Marketing, we take your business, your passion, and your why, and we sell it. If you're unsure where to start marketing your company, CEA Marketing is here to help. Our team at CEA has tons of experience and top-notch training, which helps you take all the stress and confusion out of marketing your own business. After years of working with large companies like Pulte Homes and Metro Places, we guarantee the successful implementation of a marketing strategy. Yeah, I liked, when we first sat down a couple months ago and we were talking about your clientele and who your demographic is, and you were saying, it's definitely not within the area that I live because, but you focus on other areas that are areas that there's not a lot of wealthy people, not a lot of money, right, and people that probably most of the time they would get in an accident and probably wouldn't even do anything about it because they really don't know, not that they don't know how, but it's just, I think it's just hard for those people to figure those things out.
They're overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. You know, they didn't ask for this accident.
Yes.
They get slammed into, they're like, wait a minute, I just lost the only car in the family. Mm-hmm. How do I get to work tomorrow? I my back hurts, my neck hurts. What do I do now? Who's going to pay these medical bills? I don't have any health insurance. And I sit down with every single client if they want to listen. Some of them are like, look, I trust you, just move on. But I actually sit down with them and I tell them, this is how it works. This is the insurance process. This is what Florida no fault is. This is how your medical bills get paid. Let me tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly on this. Okay, now let me tell you, let's go after the bodily injury insurance on the other side. And then I explain to them, this is how you can protect yourself and your family. Buy uninsured motorists. Buy this, buy that. And I explain to them, hey, look at your car. What's happening nowadays is a lot of people finance cars for 6-7 years, and your car is rapidly depreciating during that time.
Not worth much.
Not worth much. And now I'm not seeing as much as I did like 12 to 15 years ago, but I still see it where people, don't buy what they call gap insurance. So what happens is your car, they put a little money down and they finance it for 6 years. Well, the first 3 years is all interest. But the car has depreciated 40, 50, 60% in those first 3 years sometimes. But your loan hasn't. You still owe a lot of money. You haven't attacked the principal enough. So what happens is then the car gets totaled and people are like, well, wait a minute. I owe $40,000. The car's only worth $25,000. What do I do? And I'm like, well, did you buy gap insurance? And they're like, no. The law is very clear. They only are responsible for the repair or replacement value of a car. So if your car is worth $25,000, but you owe $40,000, they're going to pay $25,000 to the bank, and you owe the $15,000. And it's not fair. I get it, but it's not fair to the other side that you owe more than the car's worth. So I always tell people, buy gap insurance if you're going to do that.
That's good advice.
And
never thought of that before.
Yeah, people do it, and they come to me, and they're like, thank God you told me. And that's happened more than once. And also in Florida, what's also not required.
Do most insurance policies, do they offer that, or is that something you have to ask for?
Really what's happening more is the banks are doing it. The banks got burned. Mm-hmm. That's what happened about 12, 15 years ago. The banks got burned because they're like, wait a minute, all these people are upside down in cars, and they're not going to pay. They're not going to pay. I mean, as simple as that. I owe $15,000 on a car that doesn't exist. Forget it. I'm just not going to pay it. I'll just go buy a car in cash.
Right. So in order to get the loan, they say that you have to have the gap insurance.
If you're going to finance a car for 5 or 6 years, they force it on you pretty
okay.
much. So, but not everybody does it.
Right.
So you got to protect yourself. And that's why, like, another problem in Florida that I see is liability insurance, bodily injury liability insurance specifically. That's the insurance that I owe to someone else if I'm at fault, or what you owe to me if you were at fault. Mm-hmm. That's not required in the state of Florida. People don't realize that. The people say, oh, well, I have full coverage. Full coverage is Florida no fault, which pays my medical bills, regardless of who's at fault, pays my medical bills up to $10,000, and property damage up to $10,000. So your car is protected if I'm hit you, but not your medical bills, not your pain and suffering, not future medical bills, not anything else. That's it. Just your car up to $10,000. So who do you think you're going to get hit by? My dad always says, there's Murphy's Law. You've heard that.
Yes.
Well, there's Shapiro's Law, which is if it can go wrong, it will go wrong at the worst possible time. And then there's my dad's law, which is if it can go wrong, it will go wrong at the worst possible time, and it'll happen to you. So I always tell people that, like, protect yourself. Buy collision if you owe on the car. The banks always force that. Mm-hmm. But buy uninsured motorists, because if somebody hits you and they don't carry insurance or they don't have enough insurance, usually there's nothing a lawyer can do.
Really?
Yep. And I had to let go of 6 people this week.
What's the percentage of uninsured motorists in the state of Florida?
Oh, it's significant. And it depends more where you live. Listen.
Isn't that law that you have to have insurance on your car? Like if you got pulled over, you don't have insurance?
Well, all you have to carry is no fault and property damage. That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
So ask yourself, who's going to hit you? The person that lives in a double wide in Polk County or the person that lives in South Tampa? I'm telling you, you have a better chance. Well, if you have any luck at all, it's going to be somebody that doesn't have insurance or doesn't have enough.
Right.
And part of the problem is also the insurance agents. They don't tell people, hey, listen, you make good money, you should protect yourself. What they do is they sell, hey, look, this is the bottom line of insurance. So what we're going to pay for it, what you're going to get is what you want to pay. Well, what you want to pay may not be enough insurance. And if you're making $100,000, and I have a client right now that makes $800,000 a year, and he has a $10,000 policy. And I was like, you are collectible. If you hurt somebody, you are collectible. They're going to sue you personally, and you're on the hook. And the guy was like, no, they would never do that. I was like, you want to bet? I would. So he went and bought more insurance. But still, I mean, because I was like, I explained to him what could happen and has happened. You get an aggressive lawyer like me, and I do an asset check on you. I'm like, this guy makes good money. I'm going to go garnish his wages. And I've done it.
So those type of people need to have even more insurance because of the amount of money that they make.
I mean, there's nothing in it for me. But what I tell people is
Right.
do what your household income is.
Yes.
Because you want to be protected. And you want to be. That's why you buy insurance, transfer of risk. So that way I don't have to worry about it. Let them, trust me, insurance companies don't lose money. They're in the risk business and they don't
Right.
lose money. So I know people are like, oh, plaintiff lawyers, that's all they do. They're greedy. Well, there's always a client. It's not us. There's always a client. There's usually a claim. If there's not a claim, I don't want the client because those are the clients that have the smallest claims tend to be, and they demand the most money, are the most difficult clients. So I just let them go because I'm never going to make them happy. I'm like, all right, well, have a good day. And so it goes to the business. John Morgan, whether you like him or not, is actually very, very, strong, good businessman. And one of the things he says is the cases that make up 80% of your revenue take up 20% of your time, but the cases that make 20% of your revenue take up 80% of your time. So doesn't it make more sense to just concentrate on the clients and cases that make you money? So if a client's case is worth $4,000 and they're calling every single day, and that's happened, I just let them go. I'm like, hey, listen, you're calling too much. You're really demanding. You call me Friday night and ask me what's going on with my case. And why haven't you settled it? And I'm like, the accident happened 2 weeks ago. What do you want me to do? I don't want that client.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I tell them what's going on. Normally I don't have a problem, but there are always exceptions, and those people I'm never going to make happy. So you're better off just letting them go, because nowadays what you don't want is a negative Google review. And if you're never going to make that customer happy, you're better off just letting them go early on.
You're right, because Google reviews are very important.
They are.
Yeah, you need several, and if you get one bad one, it takes like 6 or something like that to.
Yeah, but what I say is, I think everyone knows that you're never going to make everybody happy. So if you have 300 positive Google reviews and you have 5 negative, I actually tend to think those are legit reviews, because, okay, look, that's about right. 100 people, one person's upset.
Yeah, you want to have some people, because if I look at something that there's 5 stars all the way, I'm like,
yeah.
There's no way we can get 5 stars all the way through.
No,
or they're paying for them,
or they're paying for them. Like,
yes.
I have a lot of good. I have almost 500 5-star reviews. I have 500 reviews on Google almost, and I think I have about 10 negative. And I'm constantly solicited. Hey, you want to take them off? I'm like, nope. Read them. I hope that people read the negative reviews, because some of them are silly, So I'm like, no, that's how you know my 5-star reviews are real.
Yeah, I like that. That is true, because you see that person that's complaining a lot and what the reviews on, and you're like, yeah, they're just being a jerk. And it's interesting to see how the company replies to that review. You want to make sure that you come back and answer them.
Yeah, you do. But I will tell you, like, for lawyers, the Florida bar handcuffed us on what we can and cannot say, because we have an attorney-client privilege. Even if your client's upset, you can't respond back because
you can't respond to reviews.
You can, but there's actually, I saved the article. There's actually a very generic answer that the bar allows us to say because you need to respond, but you can't violate an attorney-client privilege even though the client's upset with you.
Right.
Even if they do it, you still can't do it. So I'm very careful if I have something. I don't divulge anything. So if they give me a 5-star review, it's thank you for the review. and I wish I could say more, but I don't want to say thank you. You were such a wonderful client, and I'm glad that we got you, $1 million on your case. Well, why did you do that? You can't say that, So I say thank you for the review and move on. But the negative reviews, my last name's Hernandez, and it's a very common last name, and a couple of people have given me reviews meant for another lawyer.
Right.
And so those I actually will say, hey, listen, you got the wrong law firm. Just want to let you know. And, then I go through and give the standard bar response. But some of them, I had one review one time, the person was like, I called him, I talked to him every single day, and then he went on vacation and didn't call me back. I left it up there. You're right. I did. I was on vacation. They told you I was on vacation. I'm not going to return my phone call.
That guy was just being a pain in the ass.
Right. But, that was the review. I was like, really? Because I got you a great outcome. That's what I wanted to tell them. Really? You were a pain in the ass, and I got you a great outcome, and yet you gave me a 1-star review. All right. That's fine. Move on.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah, I left it up there because I was like, if you read it, you're going to go, it's not a good complaint.
Right.
So that's fun.
Yeah, reviews are interesting.
Yeah.
It can be quite entertaining sometimes, too.
Yeah, very entertaining.
I don't know if I get mad about something, like have something go wrong, I'm like, you don't really know who you're dealing with here.
Right, exactly.
Like I'm a social media company. I'll sit there and blow up every single page until they make it right.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, well, Ms. Bassetti, okay, we're going to do this for you. If we do this for you, will you please take down the review? I'm like, yeah, let me see you do it first. And then once you do, then I'll take it down. But I'll hit them on every single site possible.
Oh, yeah. No, I've done the same thing. I've been to restaurants, and I went to a restaurant recently with a neurosurgeon, and neurologist, and she was there. Lunch was at 12. At 1:15, we had not even gotten our food yet, and we ordered 12:05, 12:10 because we're told, hey, she's got patients, she's got to be back by 1:30. 1:05, we were like, she's like, look, I got to take the food to go. And yeah, you got a negative review from me because the restaurant was not busy. There was no reason for it to take over an hour to cook. I always say cook a salad, but it was a grilled chicken salad. It doesn't take an hour and 5 minutes to make that. But they deserved it.
Yeah,
I'll never go back either.
No, we had my assistant was making a hotel reservation for me, and there's a lot of she thought she was going to the direct website to make the reservation, but it was one of those kind of fake sites.
Right.
They mirror the website.
Right.
There's a lot of that going on. So she made it through that site, and when she made the reservation, it was a couple $1,000s. I'm like, why is this so expensive? I gotta, I'm going on a conference, and it should be $1,000, not $3,000.
Right.
And she's like, oh, I didn't know. So I called the hotel, and they said, yeah, we'll honor that. So I went back to that company, and I said, look, she made a mistake. You need to give me back my money. They said, nope, sorry, we're not giving you back your money.
Oh.
And it was an hour later I called them back.
Oh, boy.
And I'm like, okay, if you're not going to give me back my money, then there I went on every single website the next day. And I even commented on people's comments.
Yeah.
And the next day they're like, okay, we'll give you your money back. Just take down all those reviews. I go, you should take down those fake sites because that's not cool.
No, I'd hit them hard on Yelp and Google and everything that every site that you can find them on. You're the guru on that.
I know. That's what I said. I'm like, yeah. When I was on the phone with them, I told him too. I go, I own a company. I don't think that's a wise decision that you're making right now. Yeah. But it was funny. It works though. It does. It gets their attention because reviews matter.
They do. Yeah, and I always say results matter. If you give clients, customers good results, hopefully they give you good reviews, and you can, grow your business that way.
That's right. Speaking of growing your business, I love, actually, Martin is one of our clients here at Second Soul.
Yes, I am very happy too.
Yay. And when we first met, I love the fact that you are very out of the box with your marketing, and you like to have fun. You try a lot of different things through video, and you're there on a lot of these different social sites like TikTok, for example.
Yep.
Instagram, where you normally don't see any lawyers at all on those sites. Can you tell me a little bit about why you do that, or tell our customer, because I think it's good for them to know that, looking at where your clients are hanging out and not being afraid of those types of networks to market your business.
Well, it's funny because when I market, there are a lot of things I do. What's my target audience? What are my clients? Well, my clients are 25 to 40 years old. So, you tell me you're on Facebook only, I know you're over 40.
Those people are, right?
That's probably
over 50 these days.
Probably over 50 nowadays. You tell me I'm only on Twitter, I'm like, all right, this person's definitely in their late 50s or 60s only. Now, Twitter's making a comeback with a younger demographic. They follow, pop stars and stuff like that. Instagram, I know you're probably under 40. Now it's probably over 30.
True.
Snapchat, okay, I know you're under 30. Probably under 25. Really.
Yeah, usually after they get out of college, they tend to drop off of that sooner or later.
Yeah, and so I don't want to advertise on Snapchat because my clients are not under the age of 25. But I need to be on Instagram because everybody's on their phone. And another thing, with Lori Penchikowski, she's a good friend of mine now. That's how I met you.
Yes, we both love Lori.
We both love Lori. A little plug for Netco Designs.
That's right.
But we, that's one of the things I noticed. I was like, okay, well, these kids are on Instagram. I need to be on Instagram. And that was years ago. And I also noticed that on my website, 99% of my clients find me on their phones. They don't find me on computers. And in fact, the 1% that were on the computers were in different parts of the country, probably marketing people or spam people. Mm-hmm. So, that it was, I would say probably realistically 95 to 98% were on cell phones. And then the balance were tablets or computers.
Yeah, and they're not necessarily searching Google to find you.
No, and you got to be on every platform. Mm-hmm. I found for finding a lawyer on Yelp, those clients are from out of town. They're from the Northeast. I find that...
Yelp's not as popular here in Florida.
No, it's not. But I have some Yelp reviews, and it really helps me with the Northeasterners, if
yes.
So I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook, and Google supposedly likes Facebook for SEO purposes, so I'm on there, and they like Twitter, so I'm on there. Mm-hmm. Twitter, in my opinion, and it's not endorsing a candidate by any means.
Have you gotten business off of Twitter before?
Yes, I have. But Twitter died off after Donald Trump was booted off. So that's what I'm saying. I don't want to get political, but right. The reality is that's why people were on there. They wanted to see what he was going to say next.
Right.
But I have found people who were doing a search term, and I wrote a blog post about it, and I posted it on Twitter, and they were like, hey, by the way, I was just in a motorcycle accident, or actually the last one was I was on a bicycle accident. I was not wearing a helmet. Thanks for the article. Can I call you? Turned out to be a decent case.
All right, your clientele, what's the percentage between men and women?
That I don't track as much, but it's just over 55% of women. That has varied year to year, but 25 to 40 people who make less than $50,000 a year.
I was just curious. Twitter's definitely a good place to market too, because a lot of the guys aren't necessarily big Instagrammers or Facebook, right. But they do like to go there for their news and for their politics.
Right.
If you're into that.
Yeah, no, they follow. They read the sports, and that's what they go on is Twitter. So I don't advertise on there, but I am frequent on there.
So just posting your blog articles and helpful educational type information.
I always say it's consistency. So when I do advertising, I commit to 6 months. I tried radio, and radio was a bust, flat out, for me. The reason is because I was drowned out. There's a Publix commercial, then me, and then, hey, there's a party over here Friday night. Da, 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 da.
And they have 10 commercials on there. It's like, oh my gosh, how many commercials are you going to have?
And, like, for example, I live in South Tampa, work on Kennedy. That's where my office is. I have a 15-minute commute home, 12-minute commute to work. It's just because I get an extra light. If I hit a commercial break, I change the radio station because I got a very short commute, so I'm just changing radio stations if I'm not on the phone. Yes. So, I always find that kind of interesting. Like, radio just was not a good choice. Now, I did get one client out of it, and that client was it was a big case. It was actually a hospital. I'm not going to say which hospital, but a hospital that was lowering the x-ray table and crushed a woman's legs, and she eventually died as a result of the injuries. She was older. She was in her 90s, and so she was very feeble, and she got, when it crushed her in her legs, she, within 3 weeks, passed away. It was all related because of the accident. And that client came from a radio, and the radio people were like, "Whoa, look, you settled that case for a lot of money. You didn't lose any money." I was like, "Well, yeah, but $75,000 to capture one client is a lot of money."
It is a lot of money.
So, I'm not going to do that ever again.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Well, but you didn't lose any money." It's like, that's not the standard. That's a lot of money to get one client out of the radio. And so I won't do that. And TV is very expensive.
It is. Even the digital TV is very expensive as well.
And, again, know your audience. My audience is unplugging or cutting the cable. And so if I'm going to advertise, I'm going to do it on Hulu. And Netflix is now allowing commercials. So I'd probably do it on those stations before I would do somewhere else.
And those are nice because they only run like one commercial.
Right.
For an entire show. They run it like 4 or 5 times and drive you crazy with the same one. But hey, you remember it when you're finished watching it.
Yeah, but you hopefully remember it.
How many times are they going to run the same commercial? Like at the same break, they just rerun the same one like 3 times.
Over and over and over. And, and I have billboards and I have buses and I have bus benches. Well, to me, the way I do it is 7 words or less 7 times. And if you're driving down the road and you see a bus bench, even though they know me, but they don't see it again, they're probably not going to remember me. And so what I try to do is I cluster them together. I put 7 of them nearby each other. And that way you see it 7 times, you're like, man, I see Martin everywhere. I see him everywhere.
Yeah, that's really smart.
And I do 7 words or less because if you're driving and you have to read more than 10 words, you're probably not going to remember any of those words, or you're just not going to read it.
I know. I have clients that want me to put all kinds of stuff on the billboards. I'm like, no, do not put. You don't need all those words. No one's going to read it.
No, 7 words or less.
Exactly. And that is a rule of thumb.
And my name, Martin Hernandez. That's 2. Phone number, that's 3. Website, that's 4. That's it. Auto accident, 5-6. That's it.
You're done.
And, it gets the message across. What else do you need to know? All my experience, all this and that. No. You don't need that. And the bar tells us we have to put down Office Tampa. So that's usually 7 and 8. But they're in smaller print.
It's a small print.
It says it has to be up there. It didn't say how big. So, but yeah, that's all we put down.
That's good. It's good that you invest in your business and you see the power of advertising and all the different things that you should be doing. I think that's a big mistake I see a lot of companies make is they don't want to spend the money, and then therefore they're not constantly getting those new leads and things like that coming in because for whatever reason they don't see the value of it, or they just get stressed out because
it gets washed out. But you have to, I said this earlier to you, everybody knows your name, so be friendly to everybody.
Yes, that was your good advice that you gave early about what's the first thing that someone
everyone
should
knows,
do?
Everyone knows what you do, and everybody has your information. Those are the first 2 points. So the reason why that's important is you don't know how many times I've gone to lunch with a friend of mine who's a lawyer, and the waitress, that's my demographic, his demographic too. And the waitress, I'm like, hey, after I meet her, befriend her, become nice to her, give her a nice tip. I always believe in tipping nicely to waitresses and waiters. And I gave her my card. I was like, hey, listen, let me know if you ever need a lawyer. And she looked right at me and she goes, I need a lawyer. I just got into an accident last night. I was like, well, tell me about it. My friend who was with me has even more experience than me, excellent lawyer, looked right at me, put his hand over his head and was like, she's been my waitress for like 6 years. And you got her as a client. I was like, but did you know, does she know that you're a lawyer? He's like, no. And he's like, unbelievable. And I was like, well, sorry, man. And he was like shocked. So I always tell people, talk to everybody you know. Let everybody know what you do. Let everybody get your information.
Because everybody, if either they need one themselves or everyone knows somebody that's gotten in an accident that could need someone.
And with any business. Mm-hmm. But yes.
Or any business, you could need a plumber. You can, like for me, you could need advertising.
Yeah, I need a plumber. Well, oh man, Joey's a plumber, or Susie's husband's a plumber. He's a good guy. He did work for me. That's how you get your business. So
I also like the fact of how you said that you even take your plumber and different people to football games.
Yeah, this past Monday Night Football against New Orleans, I invited my IT guy. He's a great guy. Okay, guess what? His nephew got into an accident last year. He referred him to me. Now, I couldn't help the kid, but still, he referred him to me. My plumber, I've taken him out to lunch. I've had beers with the guy. He's referred over numerous people because he's like, Martin, I've been a plumber for I don't know how long. He goes, I've worked on so many people, lawyers' houses. None of them have treated me as nicely as you do. And I always say, be humble because doctors, and especially lawyers, they tend to like almost look down on everybody else. Well, you're no better than anybody else, man.
That's true.
Who do you think you are?
Right. That's so odd. Yeah.
So, stay humble. Talk to everybody. There's no reason to be a jerk.
No. I think that you're better than everyone else.
And definitely don't need to be a snob just because you got a law degree. No. So, but no, I mean, I try to help out everybody. If I can answer their question, if I know the answer, I will answer it. But if I don't, I tell them, look, I know who knows the answer. Call this person. So
I think that's good. And I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
So what other types of learning curves or things that you might have learned over time that you think would be good advice for my audience here? A lot of business owners listening into this podcast.
Well, I think for business owners, I always say, there's a phrase in my office, every month is a new year. So you never want to use last month's money to pay this month's bills, if you have, unless you have a big expense for whatever reason. But for the day-to-day bills, you need to make sure that you keep your overhead low. And for me, what I do before I go take on a new expense, I try to find an expense to get rid of. And because it doesn't matter how much you make, it matters how much you keep. And if you're going to be sitting here treading water, okay, and that's what we're doing every day. We're just getting by. We're floating and we're treading water. But, you put a 5-pound weight on you. Okay, well, you can do that for a little while. You put a 2-pound weight on top of that. Now you're treading water with 7-pound weights. Pretty soon you're going to get tired. So before I take on a new expense, I try to get rid of an old one. And believe it or not, I called, my cable company or the internet company in my office, and I was like, my buddy he just signed up with you guys, and he has a faster speed. He has a 100 up, 100 down, and he's paying almost $80 less a month. And she goes, well, it's not $80, it's $78. I was like, well, okay, I'll take it. I was 25 up, 25 down, and I got upgraded to 100 up, 100 down, and it was $78 cheaper a month. That's a no-brainer. All because I looked at the bill. And, sometimes doctors' offices will charge us for medical records. And I'm like, okay. And they send me a $1 per page for the medical records. I'm like, no, that's not what the rules say. Here's the statute, and I'll have a form letter. The statute says it's 25 cents per page. Have a good day. I'm paying you 25 cents per page. And certain doctors look at me and they're like, man, you're the only lawyer that does that to us every single time.
Good for you.
But
all those things probably add up.
it does add up. I mean, I had a client that was in the hospital for 6 months. 6 months. You know what his medical bill, just to get the records, was $7,000. That's what they wanted to charge me. I was like, no. Actually, the rule says this. So actually what I did was I had the client log on to the portal and just download me what I needed. Well, yeah, I'll take this and that. And it was free. But in the long run, it saved my client $7,000. So you have to watch your overhead, because the overhead monster, if it gets too big too fast, you can get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
And
I think that's great advice.
And track where your clients are coming from. If you're a dinosaur and still in the phone book, you should probably not do that. You know, if you're like, well, I'm advertising on Facebook. Well, for example, for me, clients, they don't look for Facebook to look for a lawyer, in my opinion. But they need to know who I am. Out of sight, out of mind. So
right.
It's soliciting for new business on Facebook, it's kind of, or Instagram, is kind of a waste of money. But to have interaction with my existing clients or former clients, that's more important.
Or just have fun content that you're putting out there that people are seeing and having fun with and engaging with.
Yes, and your employee, Maddie Montana, I love her, and she's come by and she's shown me how to make entertaining stuff. I'm on TikTok for the first time because of her, and, you know, she's done some great content, and we've gotten a lot of followers because we're on TikTok now. And
yeah, it's not really this, you know, selling people on what you do, just having some fun content that you're putting out there, and people are going to remember that, though.
Yeah, what is it? You want to educate, you want to entertain. I forget what the 30 is, but
educate and entertaining are really the top ones.
Yeah, you know, we need to educate so that people come on and look at it. But let's be honest, lawyers are boring. So we're boring people because it's kind of a boring subject. Even if you're interested in it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'd rather pick my nose. But, you know, we're not all boring people. Some of the most interesting people I know are lawyers. There are a lot of different characters.
Just showing how fun you are and showing your personality and being there is great. And I bet not too many lawyers are on TikTok right now.
No, but there's some ones, especially lawyers in Florida. The bar rules are very funny on what you can and can't do. Mm-hmm. But like you go out to Texas, I mean, it's like no holds barred. I mean, there's a guy out there named the Law Hawk. That guy's a nut, and he's firing fireworks at himself. And I'm like, you're an idiot, but
but he's getting a lot of.
But he's getting a lot of looks, and let's be honest, yeah, you know, I always say you can't fix stupid, but you can get a court date, and this guy's going to get a court date real soon if he gets hit with one of those fireworks. So.
Right. Oh, that's so funny. What else have you seen on TikTok as far as any of your competitors?
You know, I think a lot of lawyers do a good job in educating, but they just tend to be, you know, kind of dry because the subject's kind of dry. But I don't know if it seems to work for certain lawyers, and others are just way too dry.
Yeah.
So
people are going to go right by it. You have to have some type of entertaining aspect to it.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. This morning I put one up there that said how we get through the workday, and it was like, you know, drinking Cafe Bustelo, and, you know, it seems like people thought that was pretty funny. If you're going to drink Cuban coffee, hey, there's a reason why my people think they can swim 90 miles, and it's Cafe Bustelo. It's good stuff, all right?
Right.
The Cuban coffee will get you there.
There you go. It's true. I need to remember that. It is very strong.
Yeah, it's
keep you awake.
Yeah, same reason why meth never took off in Miami. It's because we drink Cuban coffee.
That's that why. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people, you know, keep your overhead low. Every month is a new year. Keep the bills, the overhead under control, because in your personal life too. Because if you, and anybody who's been in business, they go up and down for whatever reason. There are cycles. Yes, they do. So if you
been through those before,
a
few of them.
Yeah, and anyone who says no, I've never had a down year, you're full of shit. But if you sit there and you're like, okay, I know I can comfortably make, you know, with my mortgage and everything, you know, to eat and everything else, I need $7,000 a month. But, you know, your car payment is only $500 right now, and I always say the most dangerous word when it comes to money is the word only. Oh, it's only $50 more a month. Well, it's a funny thing about a car, for example, or your house. If it's only a few $100s more a month, when you have a bad time and you go a couple weeks or months on slow times, you're going to hate your car. You're going to hate your house. You're going to hate that pool that the kids haven't jumped in 4 months. You're going to hate that, that nice suit, or you're going to hate, sometimes you start resenting your spouse. You're like, my God, she doesn't get it. And I'm sitting here carrying this. I'm the mule pulling the cart, and you know what? The mule's tired. Can you throw some weight off the cart so that way I'm not pulling so much? You got to watch that monster, because, in your personal life and as well as your business. So what I try to do is I try to, keep my overhead low so that I can have flexibility. And, I don't hire new. I always want to be half an employee short, because if you're half an employee too much, somebody's sitting around picking their nose. I mean, this is, be honest. They're like, you're like, why do I need a receptionist if the phone's not ringing? And it just sounds bad. You don't run a charity, you run a business.
Right.
So, and I tell my staff, if all you're doing is taking voice messages for me and not helping the customer calling, I don't need you, because I can get an answering machine for free. Voicemail's free. So you better help that person, because if they're getting to me, it's because you don't know the answer. So I try to educate my employees so that they can be so more, helpful to me. Because if all you're doing is answering phones, sorry. When in 2008, I interviewed a receptionist, and we're a small firm, and I asked the receptionist, I was like, okay, well, listen, I need you to be able to file paperwork with the clerk's office. I need you to be able to order medical records. I need you to do these other things. She goes, no, I just answer phones. And I looked at her and I was like, okay, well, this is, mind you, 2008. And I go, well, how much do you make? She goes, $45,000 a year. I was like, okay. And then what benefits do you have? She goes, I have a 401k. Okay. She goes, and, I also have health insurance. And so I need all those things too. And I went, you make $45,000 a year to answer the phone.
And file paperwork.
You don't even file paperwork. All you're literally doing is running a switchboard. It was a big law firm. And I went, you need to go to the boss and tell him, and they were laying off lawyers. That's how bad it was. They were laying off lawyers. They were laying off support staff, and she was still on. I was like, you're the next one to go, because all you're doing is answering the phones. And they can find someone for $20,000 a year to answer the phones. Or guess what? They're just going to put an electronic one that says press 1 for this guy, press 2 for this guy, and you're out of a job. And she goes, no, I can't take a 30% pay cut, 33 and a third pay cut. And I looked at her and went, well, you're about to take a 100% pay cut. And it was so insulting to her that she was like, well, I don't think I can work here. I was like, I appreciate it. And she just got up and walked out. I was like, sure enough, she was fired within a week of that. She saw the writing on the wall, but she didn't realize that she couldn't do anything else. And guess what they replaced her with? Press 1 for this attorney, press 2 for this attorney.
Right. A lot of receptionists now nobody even answers their phones. It's like everything's all voicemail and everything.
Right.
Yeah, the employee side of thing is rough right now, because it's expensive.
Expensive.
They've gone up like 30% of salaries.
Oh, yeah.
30% in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
30. For a small business like mine, that's tough.
And your revenue hasn't gone up 30%. Yeah.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I'm going to have to adjust my pricing to, catch up. I didn't want to, but you're kind of forced to.
You have to. Fortunately, that's inflation.
Yes.
As
I said, usually it goes up gradually, though. But
right.
all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, this person, what would cost you, like, for $45,000, you're paying, $60,000.
Yeah, and
$70,000.
employees. To me, that's actually the hardest job for any business owner. It's not the customers, not the clients. It's not, for me, it's not the insurance companies or even opposing lawyers. It's usually the staff that gives me the headache. And, a piece of shit employee is a piece of shit at $10 an hour or $50 an hour. It doesn't, you can't pay them to work more or better. Mm-hmm. But I always say I'm really bad at interviewing, but I must be pretty good. The reason why I say that is because I don't interview that much. So I think I'm rusty. but I must be pretty good because most of my staff has been with me for more than 5 or 7 years.
That's great.
So I have 6 employees, and the newest one replaced somebody who went on maternity leave and moved out of town. She'd been with me for about almost 2 years. Everybody else has been with me for 5 to 15 years. So I must be pretty good because I retain them, and they all work. And most law firms or most businesses, 5 o'clock, everybody's running to the car. With my crew, no. At 5 o'clock yesterday, I noticed at 5:45 they were still working, and they were like, "No, Martin, my job's not done yet." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm not going to get in your way." And they're like, no, we just don't want to fall behind. And they're so dedicated that
it's great to have a dedicated team
and
that knows like working whenever they can to make sure they're getting the work done like they're supposed to.
And I bonus them accordingly. And I think
my team's like that right now.
Yeah,
it's great.
If you have a good team, and I have also kind of a little rule: if you have to ask for a raise, you probably don't deserve it. But that being said, I do give raises because it's based on what I observe, and I feel if they had to ask and they deserved it, then they're probably 1 foot out the door already. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, funny quick story was,
you got to watch out for that, because if you're not taking care of your people, someone's going to take them, especially in this job market right now.
Yeah. So
good people will go.
I had an employee. She was not phenomenal. She was just doing the bare bones minimum to get by. And you had to stay on top of her. And I'm not a micromanager, so I was like, oh, my God, I gave you this yesterday. It's a simple task. Why hasn't it been done? She asked me, the probationary period ended, and maybe laziness, I didn't want to hire somebody else. So I was like, well, she's just kind of good enough. She came in, and she's like, hey, listen, I'd like a raise. My probationary period is over. And I looked at her and I went, I got to be honest with you. Your job performance is not that spectacular. So today's your last day. Have a good day. She goes, wait, you're firing me because I asked for a raise? And I said, well, I got to be candid. Your job performance is subpar. If I don't give you a raise, you're going to leave, or it's going to continue or get worse. Not one of these options is good for me. So let's just let it go now, and today's your last day. Harsh, but am I right?
You're right.
So let's just let it go. I mean, she actually later thanked me because her father was a client, and her father called me up and about 4 months later, and he goes, that was the best advice you gave her. And because I told her, I was like, in your next job, dedicate. Because, I caught her on her phone so many times. And I'm like, if I'm paying you and you're on your phone, that means I'm paying you and you're not working. And if I'm paying you to do something and you're not doing it, you're stealing. So that's how I view it. Now, I'm not saying you can't take a phone call, but if you're, on social media while I'm paying you,
right, and
that's not your job, then you're stealing. And I don't run a daycare. I don't run a charity. So you gotta go. And, I also have a no gossip rule in my office, because gossiping can really crush people. In small office, gossiping can crush small office. So strictly enforced. No.
I have a no drama rule.
That's a good rule too. No drama, but
it's kind of like gossiping, but drama and gossiping kind of fall underneath the same category. Well, we had a great podcast.
Thank you.
You shared some great information. Thank you. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Learning Curves.
Second Soul Studios is a full-service production studio with capabilities for photo, video, podcasting, editing, co-working, and more. Our photo video studio has a number of different backdrop choices and props to choose from. We also have a gourmet kitchen set, or if you're an upstart podcaster, you'll love our 4-person podcast studio. So what are you waiting for? Visit secondsoulstudios.com to book a tour today.